My journey in crypto started when I was a professor at MIT, and we did the MIT Bitcoin experiment. Now, that was a little bit more than a decade ago. But by now, it's really clear that Bitcoin serves a very special role in the digital asset space. You've heard in the past, it's not about Bitcoin, it's about the blockchain. Here you're looking at the Google Trends volume over more than 10 years since we did that experiment at MIT. And the answer is, it's actually all about Bitcoin. The price when we did the experiment and gave all the MIT undergraduates about a third of a Bitcoin was $350. And at the time of the announcement of the SBR, it was around 90,000. But I don't want that price to distract you from the bigger picture. I love to look at the Bitcoin price on a log scale. When you zoom out and you remove all those daily fluctuations, the craziness of the markets as we're seeing over the last few days, it's a linear trend. It's going up progressively. That's a technology S-curve for you. It's essentially individuals, institutions, and now even governments adopting this new digital asset for the properties that it really entails. But where's the breakthrough? If we were to take a step back, why should you care? Satoshi solved the problem that was outstanding computer science for decades, the double spending problem. Before Bitcoin, we simply didn't know how to create scarce digital asset. Imagine an email attachment, a digital file can be copied many times over. And that's a terrible property when you're trying to think about value and money. By solving that problem, it gave us something truly novel. It entails a reduction in two fundamental economic costs. The first one is the one you heard a lot about today, the cost of verification, the ability to prove ownership, transfer ownership in this scarce, finite digital asset. But today I want to put emphasis on the second one, the cost of networking, which is potentially more important in the long run. It's the ability to bootstrap an economic system, an economic network, without assigning control to any single intermediary. There's no single point of failure in Bitcoin. And that's what makes Bitcoin a lot more important than just digital gold. Digital gold is the starting point, but don't forget sight of Bitcoin, the network. It represents a breakthrough in what economists call market design, how we shape institutions, how we coordinate economic activity all across the globe. Satoshi wrote some code, released it on the internet, and that code came with economic incentives. If you bring security to the network, you will be rewarded. Sometime in the future, maybe 2025. This is where it started. People in their basement, in fact, many of you probably started there, with a big fan and a laptop. But economic forces drove that escalation really rapidly across different production modes and different infrastructure. And over the years, it became more and more professional. Today, of course, Bitcoin mining is state-of-the-art data centers all across the globe, looking for stranded energy from renewables to flare gas to whatever is available, hydropower, moments in time where the grid isn't demanding that kind of energy. And they've turned essentially the first infrastructure that's fully available and decentralized on a global scale into something that every one of you can really build on in the future. It is a truly open and decentralized protocol for money. When the internet was first designed, there was an error code, 402, payment required. That got never implemented. And Bitcoin is here to answer that. But you may wonder, why does decentralized infrastructure even matter? Why should you care? Typically, when you think about payments and financial services, you think about digital wallets and their wars, crypto players coming in, legacy networks, the banks, payment service providers. That's kind of the ecosystem. But as we've seen earlier today, often there's also a geopolitical lens on top of it. You can think of payment cold wars. On one side is SWIFT versus CHIPS, or Visa versus UnionPay, Google Pay and Apple Pay against WeChat Pay and Alipay, or Coinbase versus Binance. The decline of US leadership in this space is problematic. We used to be the global leader when it came to banking and financial infrastructure. And Bitcoin is going to be a key component of really rebooting that leadership in the near future. Our adversaries have been trying to undermine the role of the dollar for a long time. We benefit from an exorbitant privilege because we're the issuer of the global reserve currency. Meanwhile, as we heard earlier today, bureaucrats in Basel are designing a version of the financial internet, they call it Finternet, that looks a lot like AOL or Microsoft Network or Apple eWord. There's a good chance you won't remember any of these. In the end, the internet prevailed. The internet was a permissionless open network for information and communication. So there's a better way to build a future financial system. And as you guessed, that starts with Bitcoin. We did this before, and it is also a very American way to build. We did it with the internet. We created the right conditions for the commercial internet to thrive, for innovation and entrepreneurs to build and experiment. That picture is a picture of ARPANET, right, which was a mix of government R&D on the defense side and academic institutions. We have that infrastructure today already in place with Bitcoin and all of you here in this room. We have a narrow window of opportunity. Here you're plotting the global adoption of crypto against the internet to get to 1 billion users. We're at an inflection point, and things will move much more fast from here onwards. The good news is that despite the attacks on the industry from the last few years, most of the talent is still here. So we have the capability to build, and we can really seize this opportunity. We can still prevent a crypto Sputnik surprise. We've seen it in AI, and of course in crypto, we have a chance to lead. How do we do that? We need to really harness the power of open and permissionless networks. We need to build. We need to make them the backbone of our payments and financial infrastructure. So you have often thought of Bitcoin, the asset. I would love for you to think about Bitcoin, the network. Now, many of you will raise eyebrows, right? So Bitcoin is hard to build on. Bitcoin is like building for space. It's extremely complex. It's simple by design. It doesn't have the flexibility of other permissionless networks, but that's also its strength. TCP/IP was the protocol for information exchange. Bitcoin will be the TCP/IP of value. And the US can lead in building out that infrastructure so that the future financial ecosystem is based here. You may ask, how does this interplay with the dollar? The dollar and Bitcoin are complements, as we already heard earlier today. And in fact, by designing a strategic platform play around both the role of Bitcoin, the network, and the asset, and USD-denominated stablecoins, we can really increase the chances of the United States leading in this industry for decades to come. Stablecoins can be the killer app on top of a network that is open, decentralized, can reach where the dollar cannot, and can really complement US values and principle anywhere in the world. Thank you very much.